Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 9, Episode 4 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's coming out on 5/11/2026, and we're just going to get right into it. We're looking first at a lime lager from Thirsty Dog Brewing called the Perro Mexican Lime Lager. I got it really because of the dogs, man. That
It's a
was
cute
the
little
whole thing.
dog.
Yeah, it's a cute little dog on it. It doesn't have any copy on it. It just says Thirsty Dog Brewing on it. So, but anybody that likes dogs and makes a good lager, I'm behind. But we'll see if it's a good lager.
There you go. So I'll say this about it. I think it's refreshing. I think it's crisp. I think it really nails lime. I mean, both the flavor of like the lime juice as well as that kind of like mouthfeely of like the peel, that like strong citrusy oil. I think my downside to it is that's really all it does. It is unapologetically lime, which I don't think favors it as a just sit here and drink it kind of beer. But as soon as it hit my mouth, I was like, I really want food with this. I think it's a
Yeah.
great food pairing, especially like in I know it's a Mexican lager, so maybe it's what brought it to my mind. But truly, some really salty tortilla chips, some nice guacamole, something like that. Like I think this is definitely a beer I could drink 2 or 3 of at dinner at a Mexican restaurant. It's
Yeah.
well crafted. I do really like it. I don't think it's my sit outside and sipping beer. I think it's I'm inside. I'm eating something that goes really well with citrus. And I just want to crush these while I'm eating it.
Yeah, it's not a shandy. It's nothing like that. This is, you eat it, you drink it with something that you're eating. And I thought of fish tacos, like
Fish
immediately.
tacos would be
Fish
great.
tacos would
Yeah.
be great with this.
It needs something a little salty. And it needs something that's not too oily.
Yeah.
Like you can have them fatty, like I think the guacamole would be fine. But you don't want something really oily because you want the citrus to cut through it okay. And you want something salty because of how refreshing it is.
Yeah, I think like steak tacos and like beef tacos, like where you ground beef tacos, would
Yeah,
probably be a
would be
little bit
good.
too oily for it.
I think you could do steak. I think you struggle a little bit with ground, but I think you could do it. I don't think you would do birria with this. Something that's
Yeah,
like a slow cut.
definitely
Like that.
no chorizo or anything like that.
Yeah, but it'd be great with chicken. It would be great with fish. It would be great with
Yeah,
any of the like also cheese dishes would be really good
Yeah.
because like there's fat and cheese, but it's not the same sort of like oiliness.
yeah,
Get some good enchiladas with it. Red sauce with this would
Yeah.
be really good.
yeah. This is like, we know what we are. We know where we're coming from. We know who's going to eat this with what, or who's going to drink this with what they're eating. Like, this is definitely targeting that demographic. It's like if you like a Corona kind of deal, you like a
Yeah.
Corona with like chips and like putting a little bit of lime in it and stuff like that. You should drink this instead.
Yeah, I could see that.
Exactly. Drink this instead. This is a much better summer beach at the setting, eating some like fried food or beach food, shrimp, ceviche, anything like that. Like would just go so well with this beer. It's a good one. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, and I think I could sip this one, like if I was exploring it a little bit with like, yeah. I mean, again, I'd have to pair it with something. But like if I was like eating, like, okay, I'm gonna have like a little bit of cheese first, and then see how that plays with the
Yeah.
flavor of it and stuff like that. If I was doing like experiments with that, I could just sip this one for a while. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very refreshing. It's very light. The only thing I think gets it for me is because it is so kind of one note. It's hard for that to be entertaining for like a slow sip. But in all honesty, again, like if you got anything else in that mix, like you could probably convincingly put this in a pretty good cocktail. Like you want to make your own shandies.
Yeah.
Like you want to put something in it, like some sort of soda that isn't already like a lemon lime, but you wanted to have like a little limeyness to it. You could do that.
You probably could, or
Yeah.
if you wanted to add like a ginger bite to it or something like that.
Yeah, or
put,
like
a ginger beer.
exactly. Like you could convincingly put this in something like a cherry juice might be really
Yeah.
nice. Because those flavors will complement well. It's good. I mean, especially coming off the last episode, I can say this is very nice, very refreshing. This isn't one of these beers I'm going to slam and I'm going to be done with 2 minutes into this podcast, but it is going to be something I'm done with by the end of this podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
This is so refreshing. I'm going to drink this instead of my water.
Yeah,
when like I need to like wet my throat.
I agree. I'll finish this beer. I normally finish my beer. A lot of times Ricky doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I just finished it because I'll finish it because I don't want to carry it downstairs. I'm going to finish this one because I'm really enjoying it. Um, so take that how you will. I I'm gonna experiment with this one. So when I was saying I could sit and experiment with it, what I meant was I wouldn't just drink it by itself, just to drink as like a ruminating drink. A lot of times
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'll do with whiskey or wine or something like that. I'll sit there. But if I was pairing it with like say, how does this taste if I smoke a cigar? And I sit there and I let it the flavors evolve as I'm smoking a cigar. Two
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy things together sometimes just kind of cancels them out into good mental health. you know, um,
Yep.
uh, the the other thing maybe with some cheese, or I'm sitting there with like some chips or something like that that I feel like would really accentuate the flavor because like the aftertaste is like this very salty, limey kind of thing that's
Mm-hmm.
setting on my tongue. I wonder how that would play with brie or a
Yep.
cheddar or something that's like a lower fat content
Mm-hmm.
but a harder cheese or something
Yeah.
like that. Anyways, let's talk about how Apple is rolling out age verification. So um, it really hasn't hit the U.S. yet,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some laws that are coming out. Like in California, they put out a law that all operating systems need to, by a certain date, have age verification and ID checks built into them the moment that they
Yeah.
are like in not installed but registered. So that means Linux, your Steam Deck, your Steam machine, your Linux distros, they're all going to have to do this
Mm-hmm.
in California, which means they'll probably do it throughout the rest of the United States. But that hasn't gone into effect throughout the rest of the U.S. yet.
Yeah.
Um, and Discord's doing this. Apple's doing this. Microsoft has plans to do something like this. There's pressure globally to
There
do these
is.
sorts
Yeah.
of things. I'm I am there's some politics involved here, and I'm less involved in the want to be less involved in the politics of it. What I really want to discuss here is from a security two things. From a security standpoint, is this a good idea? And then from a technological standpoint, is this a good idea?
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll start with technology first because I think from the technology end is the more cut and dry one. I don't think when we look at technology, if you're providing it data, what can it use that data to enhance your experience for? And truly, I don't think there's any benefit on the technology end because there you can already in a lot of things that have targeted content tell it how old you are and it will target your content towards that, right? You don't have to verify that someone's, whatever age for your algorithm to think they're that age and provide them content because that's how old they told you were, right? The verification process isn't necessary for that. So I don't really think at a technology level there's any benefit whatsoever. I think where you can start to have arguments is at the security level, which then it's a slightly different conversation of can the additional like protection you are provided by implementing the security system outweigh the restrictions of having to be within that security system, right? And I mean, I will admit my personal stance is I don't think from a security standpoint this is really that great a thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think, at least here in America, we're running into huge issues with people installing software, at least at like a societal level, people installing hardware that they shouldn't be able to install. Sure, piracy does exist, but I do not buy at a societal level that piracy is such a big deal. It is harming society, right? Like I'm sure the companies that make the software want to be able to verify that someone isn't just like a random person who's installing something they didn't actually purchase or whatever. But to the average consumer who gives a crap, right? if, like, just as an example, Joe, if you choose to go pirate a piece of software and install it as yourself when you didn't buy a license, that does not impact me in any way, right? It doesn't impact our community really in any way. So I don't see anything there. So now you have to turn towards personal security. And you're saying, okay, hey, if I can verify this person is who they say they are, I can protect them better. I don't really see that. Anytime that a system has your personal identifiable information, that's itself a risk. And then it takes back to content protection of, hey, if we can verify this person is under a certain age, we can make sure they're not exposed to content above a certain age, right? So this is where I think about like my daughter, and it's like, okay, she's 8. If I had to register it as her, I could prove she was 8, which really I probably couldn't because most children don't have IDs, so I'm not sure how they would identify this other than doing face scans and stuff like that, which is already its own, security issue. But like, let's even say that you could. Let's just say magically, I could set up her tablet when she turns 9 and be like, she's 9 years old right now. The problem with that is content moderation is not up to snuff. I have her on things like kids YouTube and things like that, which are better than like just letting her have an adult YouTube account. But it's still not great.
Mm-hmm.
Truly like things that are just completely not age appropriate do get filtered out, which that is nice. But it's still like doesn't really keep her from, oh, I watched something scary, I had a nightmare. That's me teaching her, look at videos, see what type of videos they are. If you start watching a video and it doesn't feel right, you can turn it off, type of thing. That's more like teaching personal responsibility around technology. So I mean, just overall, I don't really buy it. I think the only security thing you could reasonably say, hey, this is definitely like better security for society, is in the case of trying to find criminals. Like if somebody has done something wrong and they're on the run and they bring their laptop with them, like you could more definitively say that laptop is with this person. It's just still a bit of a stretch because there's lots of stuff to track that stuff anyway, if you have any sort of other records. And other devices such as phones do it way better because they can hit off cell towers and stuff like that. It's a real stretch, and I'm really struggling to see outside of the corporate benefit, what benefit that things like this have to like society or people as a whole. I really just don't see it.
I don't have anything else to add. You pretty much articulated everything that I would say. I don't have any other points. I don't have anything else that I could sit down and say, no, I kind of see it this way. I can't even in good conscience argue for any of the points that lawmakers are making right now. We've seen things like this come before, where age verification has been used. If someone wants to get it, they'll get around it by using a person who is older than them that is a little bit unscrupulous to do whatever, or they'll steal that information and use it to get use the older person's identity. Fake IDs. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So kids are, especially when they hit like the teenage years, they're not dumb. If they want something, they can get it. They'll make it happen. The thing that we were talking about last time with I had a kid staying with me because my wife and I do like foster care stuff, right? And that kid, I'm not going to tell their story, but they did a lot of things that they weren't supposed to, and that legally they shouldn't be able to, but they were able to because they didn't care.
Yeah.
They just went and did it. So if we're talking about like protecting someone like that, which is kind of what things like this are targeted at, that's not going to work by giving them rules. That's not how human psychology works. So I could go into like a whole diatribe about the education behind that, and I'm not going to, not because I'm not willing to do it. That's beyond the scope of this podcast, and it's really like gets a little bit into the politics of it too.
Mm-hmm.
But also from a technology standpoint, you can't make. Like I could lock down everything technologically. That wasn't the problem. They were accessing stuff they shouldn't have been able to, and the technology didn't have anything to do
Yeah.
with stopping that. You know, if I would have given them a laptop and I would have tried to like keep them from doing stuff by putting software on it and all this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff, they would have just went to someone else's laptop.
Yeah, exactly. It's really notoriously difficult to pull off things like that. And I think from a governmental level, we make laws around government standards, which I mean is not in and of itself a reach, right? Like if the government's going to come in and say, "Hey, you need to do something," they're like, "And I want you to fit our standards for identification, like scan an ID or take like photos from certain angles and things like that to try and match up with stuff in our databases." And like, okay, yeah, if something like this passes and we take the only permissible thing I said I could even somewhat see, which is the like tracking people for, security reasons, sure, that's maybe the most cut and dry way to do it. It's also the most massively restrictive and probably also one of the easiest to truly get around.
Yeah,
I think I still wouldn't support it, but if this argument was more instead of, hey, look, everybody and their mother is getting security breached constantly because all of these websites who can't really handle user data are getting hacked because there's just everyone's user data is in everything right now. Now, here's this new standard that if you're going to have any personal information here, it's going to have to be very, very restricted. So, really, probably what your better option to do is set up, the OAuth with like Google or Facebook and these other big providers that can meet our standards. That's less restrictive, because you can set up Google or Facebook OAuth on almost anything.
yeah,
Even small independent websites could do it. And then if what you really cared about was this tracking somebody, you can then at least say, hey, they signed in with a major data provider that already has streamlined processes for us to subpoena data, and we can see the person who used this Gmail email address logged into this website. When they were on that website, they logged into this device, and haha, that's who we're looking for, the person
yeah.
who owns this device, right? Like it's one step removed. It still provides you most of the benefit of your restriction and massively less intrusion on people's lives and on a ton of providers. Because the other side that really hits me with this is like, I think the OS world is kind of lost a little bit. I don't think we're going to live in a world anytime soon that there's true operating system options other than, Linux, Mac, and Windows. There's just not a lot of benefit at a business level to try and break in and be the fourth.
Well, even if
But
we're talking about like iOS or Android, those are, I mean, essentially some flavor of
exactly,
Linux.
there's a full flavor of that already thing. Where it really hits me is when people are actually trying to do less Linux and OS X, so they're still owned by these massive companies. But like when Steam wants to come in and wants to have a device you can log into, if that needs to be registered, that's for Steam. Sure, they can do it because they're big, but like, how far does that bounce down to being like, oh hey, you want to run like these Miu Minis emulators? That needs to get registered to a person, and now
Yeah.
that specific distro or maybe even custom distro you've worked on that work best with your thing needs to have all these verification processes. It's just such a huge ask.
Or your IoT devices. You own
Yeah,
an IoT device, you boot it up, and you have to register and create an account and prove your age.
exactly. And like, where does that sit? Like, I hate now that on a lot of apps, if you want to sign up for them, you have to verify your identity.
Yeah,
And like for certain apps, I can understand it to a point. Like if you're on a dating app and it wants a picture of you like live to verify you're the person in the picture you posted as your profile picture. I do think that's intrusive. I don't necessarily agree we should have to do that. But I can see that argument of, and hey, you're not going to put up here that you're some 25-year-old dude, and you're really a 60-year-old man who's going to kidnap somebody who shows up to see you, right? Like, you can see if your app is making person-to-person connections, just like my Lyft driver has to have a background check. You should have some sort of understanding I am who I say I am. But when we start extending this to all devices, again, it feels like such a heavy hammer with so little benefit. When you could, take this 80-20 rule and you could get 80% of what you want, and it has 20% of the impact. And even if I personally still don't agree that's a good idea, I think society as a whole would accept it a lot better.
Yeah. I don't know why you chose 65-year-old men that as your target.
Because I've been talking to a lot of women on these dating apps, and just the whole different podcasts for a different time. Some of the stuff these women have to deal with is wild. There are definitely some 60-year-old men in these chats being like, "Yeah, girl. I mean, I might be 63 and you might be, 29, but we can make this work. I know you said no, and I'm going to kind of hide that from you. Yeah. Oh no, this is a picture from me from 2001. Stuff like that. There's creepy people out there doing creepy things, and I get that. Same thing with why I'm okay with Lyft needing to do a background check, or like when you sign up for those things, they got to verify you. Like on my Lyft thing, I have to take a front picture of myself so they can match it to me when I show up. So,
I'm not going to finish.
Security is too serious a topic, Joe. We don't joke about it. I'm locked in right now.
Yeah, you are a bit locked in. Just from the news and things that I kind of read about this stuff, I think the scamming, like the phishing, all that other stuff, that does warrant, people being more transparent about who they are and things like that on certain apps. I agree with that. Like there is a place for verification in those things. I still think that the way we're going about it oftentimes allows for people to do things that are still scammy, and potentially physically dangerous, while not securing things the way they should. And it ultimately benefits data collection for larger enterprises.
Definitely.
And companies like that. So, you have two problems. You have people that feel scared and they need help. Whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. If you feel like you are a person who needs your safety to be helped in some way, then you need to get that. But if you're a person who is able to circumvent the measures by going on verifying who you are and then changing details later to make it easier, or it doesn't matter how old you are, the facial recognition will look at your older picture and see you at a certain age. That's not ultimately helping those people. What that's doing is that's helping the data collection and selling of that data collection. So just to be very clear, I think that ultimately that is what this is going to do, is be a way of collecting data about people for advertising profiles and things like that. And while it will allow for some parallel construction under law enforcement, because that's not how American law works, and most laws in the world in our kind of Western countries that are like the UK and the EU and stuff like that, they also have some sort of fruit of the poisonous tree type laws that are supposed to protect their individual people's rights. And as disgusting as it may sound, if you're a person that's accused of a crime and you did something like murdering or raping or something like that, you still have to get the same defense as someone who was accused of that and is innocent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you did the thing, because that's how we tell the difference between innocent and guilty. And just because you're innocent in a court of law doesn't mean that you didn't actually commit the crime. It just means you weren't able to be proven that you committed the crime. And that is where the frustration with these things come, There's a lot of ways that people, especially if they have money or power, can say, I didn't do this, where it's easier to prove it. And a lot of people that are poor and don't have power get, kind of accused of things and can get kind of stomped down. And this isn't going to help that. This isn't going to make that any better. This isn't going to push us towards a better, more fair world. All it's going to do is make it so that corporation can sell your data to law enforcement, parallel construction can happen, and if you've been targeted for one of these things, you can be put into a worse spot. Because right now, that guy that you gave an example of is still out there doing all this creepy stuff on younger people that he shouldn't be doing that to. He's probably doing it to older people too. He's just doing that creepy stuff to people.
It's everybody.
It's not any individual younger person. And because that's happening, he's not being stopped. No one's interjecting. No one's intervening, even though there's probably something illegal going on there. And I would be willing to bet that if some of those people went and complained about it, he's probably not going to get in trouble, because that's not who's being targeted to, get in trouble for things.
Yeah.
And that's really the problem here. When you're talking about technology, or you're talking about the more security side of it, we're not making it any more secure for the individual. We're not making technology that's more beneficial for the individual. All we're doing is creating some security theater, creating some semblance of something that continues to get you to pay for a service or something like that because you feel better about it. And my kids are more secure. I can just let Microsoft babysit my child online.
Yes.
And they can charge me a monthly fee for that. And that's the sort of stuff that we're headed towards with this, and the government's backing it, essentially.
Yeah. And I do see that as a parent a lot, of the kids who have the device and it's got the parental controls or whatever on it. And that's kind of the most it's been done. And that very often, I know several parents who that's been in the butt because of, again, how bad the content moderation is. I've had a lot of success with my daughter. Instead, like way before she had anything with parental controls on it, she had to watch all of her stuff with us. And so if she picked something that wasn't good, I'd say, okay, well, here's kind of why this isn't good, and here's why you shouldn't do this, and here's how they've kind of tricked you into thinking this was a different thing than what you thought it would be. And, at this point now, she's really good about picking out her own content. So now that she's got the parental controls on her, we haven't really had any issues because, one, less content's available, and when bad content shows up, she recognizes it right away. So, you're right. It is that level of, you want to try and provide security to people, but then people also need to, at a certain level, be invested in their own security. I know we've got other topics, so it'll be the last thing I bring up on it, but, I'll use that dating app again as an example. I was talking to a nice girl. We decided to be friends, and she was sharing somebody who had been talking to her, and how it kind of turned creepy towards the end. And I always hit okay, well, we need to find out, is this guy just kind of being creepy and you can just block him and that's okay? Or is this person a scammer who may have already been collecting evidence to blackmail you or something like that? And a really easy thing to do for that is you can grab some pictures that they've sent and you feed them through these AI facial recognition tools. And when it comes back of oh, here's this famous person or whoever, okay, well, that's probably a scam. But then, this guy, while he was being a little creepy, he came up we found his job. We found the website that his face is posted to as a member of our staff.
Oh.
And it's okay, well, at least, yeah, he's just a little creepy, just block him. But two, dude, you've probably completely unknowingly posted some pictures online that have your face in just the right light that it was able to say, and this corporate headshot's him too. Right? And that's not good.
Yeah.
You don't want to be advertising your place of work with its location right there and your corporate phone number.
Unless, hear me out, because some scammers have gotten this sophisticated, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if it was a scammer and they just were using because famous people now are easier to detect?
Yeah, so I don't think so, because I got a lot of scammers. Men get them more than women. And I had a lot of fun with them because I liked to string them along until I found out what the thing was. Like, okay, are you trying to like blackmail me? Are you trying to convince me you're in a bad situation? You want money? Like, what directions is going? And I could do a whole topic on that because I've
We
learned
will
so
do
much.
that. That is going to be one of our next things, and you're probably going to talk the whole time.
I'll talk the whole time. I've got some recent experience. I like strung along like 6 scammers. It was a great time. But what I will say, generally, when it's a scammer, you will find the exact pictures they've stolen online.
Yeah.
So even if it's just like a regular guy, you'll still see like, and here's his Facebook, and here's his whatever, and here's this, and then like it paints his profile. This person's just like got these photos everywhere. And then when you go to those sources, you can see, oh yeah, this is definitely not this guy. He doesn't live in the state they said he lived in. Already has a wife or whatever. This guy had enough operational security to say, I'm not going to post any pictures like from my Facebook here. So none of his pictures were a match to anything it could find, but his face was still just recognized from another picture that's been uploaded into this thing.
Gotcha.
And so I'm pretty sure he was like an actual guy. Whereas, man, the low effort for the ones that I've run into, it's just like, hey, here's these photos of these women. It's like, cool, I'm going to search that. It's like, okay, that's a porn star, that's a porn star, that's a cam girl, that's a porn star. And like the exact photos that they sent, even if there's nothing explicit in them, like I won't spoil it, but at no point did any of these scammers were like sending illicit pictures.
Yeah.
They were just sending like face shots and just like casual at the mall stuff that these content creators also like post to their like forums and stuff like that. So like they did put the thought into it. They were like, let me just get some natural pictures of just a conventionally attractive woman. But you can track all that stuff down pretty easy now.
Yeah, you can. So don't have a whole lot of time to talk about this, but I do want to talk about that Tim Cook stepped down and John Ternus replaced him is replacing him as CEO. They're kind of in a transition period right now. But so Tim Cook, supply chain expert, took over. He was like the VP of supply chain at Apple before he became the CEO. John Ternus had like more of a background in hardware. Is like the guy who like really the Apple Silicon, the ARM chips that they're using for Apple Silicon, and arguably their iPhones and everything else like that are his like kind of master project that he oversaw. To give him just credit for that, I think, is a little bit disingenuous because it's a whole team's effort. But he was the kind of the head of that ship.
Yeah.
So the question here is, does this bode well for Apple, or are we going to go back to an era where Apple's doing some like crazy inventive stuff, but they're not really doing very well because of hardware focus, but not user experience focus?
Yeah. So I'll say I do think it's a good turn for Apple. I think it's a smart decision. I think we had the other ex-CEO in a time where supply chain was maybe the most critical problem in the industry. With all the stuff happening, COVID and everything like that, it was very hard to get your hands on anything because so much stuff was being manufactured elsewhere. So he handled all those contracts very well. He handled getting kind of their own hardware supply chains internally set up. And, ultimately, Apple's a service company. When you look at where they make their money, that's the same for most of these technology companies. They don't make their money on the iPhone. They make their money on all the apps you install, on all the services they provide on it, and things like that. And I think with AI, we're moving more into that. Like, so I don't think like I have a hard time believing Apple is now going to try and invent a way better iPhone than they currently have, or like a way better whatever than their current thing. I think there'll be a real focus on improving the hardware they're making themselves, which fits very well and with the new CEO. And I think about having an efficient but cost-effective base platform. Because with the way AI is going, I mean, AI is the ultimate service. The people that really nail a good AI agent, and they're like, and we'll charge you $25 a month for 10,000 tokens or whatever. And this is just a thing it's all going to run in our data center, but you're going to be able to run it off of whatever your little device is as long as you have internet. That really does open the door to really, really cheap devices that are just almost like little AI interfaces, right? So you don't want to be Apple trying to fight in that market. There's not a lot of money for Apple in having the $50 AI whatever. Instead, what you want is you want to have the cost-effective, high-performance platform. They say, okay, yeah, we can do all that $25 a month stuff, but also we're strong enough now, especially with RAM improvements we've been seeing come out of Google, we can run some stuff locally. You're going to get some stuff from us you can't get anywhere else. And, I'm not convinced we don't live in a world pretty soon that the upfront cost of a lot of this technology, which is generally very expensive, like a new iPhone's more than $1,000.
Yep.
That we see those costs really cut down, and they're able to preserve some amount of profit margin because they're making their own hardware and things like that. But it's a good enough device. It's like, and we can just anything you can buy, you can put on here.
I think so. That is a completely different topic in my mind.
Okay.
And I think we should explore that, and we should talk about the MacBook Neo when we do. I think that John Ternus becoming the CEO is kind of up in the air because it could go either way. And I'm hoping that what we'll see is Apple developing more efficient silicon chips like they have and pushing the industry towards lower cost, user commodity like kind of things, while also providing professional equipment for like creators and AI workloads and things like that. Because really right now the best things that you can buy without spending 3, 4, 5 grand for like a cluster of AI compute nodes or something like that, or more. I mean, like 10, 15 grand is like that Apple silicon stuff that's out there, and that all kind of comes from Ternus. So if he continues down that direction and he's leading in that hardware way, I think that Apple really could do something really well, be very efficient. I mean, already, like, I use a M4 Mac Pro for work, and while I am not done with Linux, I'm not like a fanboy of Apple's closed ecosystem, all that other stuff. It's really a super efficient, good laptop, and compared to the Windows laptops efficiencies, where I would have to plug in my laptop after like 40 minutes of use, I can go all day with my M4 just using it, and I don't have to plug it in. Now it's normally plugged in because I'm using monitors, and that kind of goes over that connection. But when I don't want to work at my desk, it is like a great thing to have a very efficient, powerful laptop.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking very similar things here. I think you're 100% right. The real benefit of hardware forward is we're going to get really well tuned hardware. We're going to hopefully be able to produce it cheaper than our competitors can produce it because we're designing a lot of stuff. I mean, that's where a closed ecosystem does benefit them. You know, they're not worried about hardware compatibility with the greater market, right? They're making their thing, and it only needs to work with their stuff, and it doesn't have to have a whole bunch of compatibility with other systems. But ultimately, hardware is never where they make the money, because exactly to your point, what they've sold you on is this laptop is now more available to me than the other laptop was going to be. And therefore, because now I've got the better mobility, I'll buy into this ecosystem, and then they're making all their money off of you existing within that ecosystem. Right. And so that's the exact same thing I think we're going to see, and AI will just amplify that. Because, I don't think really too many of these AI tools are going to become truly, truly proprietary. I think as a service, I don't think we're going to live in a world where you log into a website to get in, like, you get on X to go talk to Grok, and Grok is like, well, actually, you're on a Mac, so you can't run me.
Exactly.
You know, or like, oh, Gemini's not going to load up in a browser because you're using an Apple machine, right? Like, there's too much lost profit in the competitiveness of your models when you lock that down. So really what you're saying is, okay, which device can I use as my interface with these services that's going to travel with me the best, that's going to last the longest, that's going to have other comfort features along with it, right? And again, I don't think we're ever going to see an Apple laptop for $400, but, you know, at least not one that's of extremely high quality. But, you know, yeah, they might go after like a Chromebook competitor.
That's why I'm saying we need to talk about the MacBook Neo.
Okay, yeah, and I don't know as much about the Neo.
Yeah, because just to let you know, I think you're wrong.
Okay, that's good. But I mean, there's a lower number here that Apple's not going to play with, right? I got 50 was probably overdoing it before, but Apple's never going to try and be in the business of like, I've got the 7,500 or 100 or 150 or wherever they decide to draw that number,
right?
Because then, you know, as much as they're making money on the services, they can't produce something of high quality that will fit their standard of their brand, kind of that low.
I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think that's where the hardware is really beneficial, because the lower they can get that number and feel good, the better adoption they're going to get into this AI market of people like, this is the device I use my AI on, right? So like, not the thing that's making the AI, but now people have bought into the, okay, I'm always going to have real AI in my life. This is what I want it on. The lower you can get that number through efficiency or whatever other message you're doing, and it still be like a flagship product, the better Apple's going to look, because they want that token money. Because I think you can convince a lot of people, unless they've got really specific use cases, to say, you know, hey, look, you know, whatever, I forget what the Apple one's called. Your Apple AI is close enough to whatever. I love that it's native and I can just hit a button and talk to it and it does my thing.
Oh, that Apple doesn't have one. Doesn't have a native AI anymore.
Yeah. Oh, okay. They got rid of it.
Yeah, so Siri is their assistant, and that's just like a face for Gemini.
Yeah.
And Gemini runs in the background. It's like their own custom Gemini, but they're still using Google's like stuff. And they also use ChatGPT. It's like they use both of them.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh. And then see, now I want to know what that profit model looks like, but that's okay. That's a different conversation that information might not even be available yet. I'm sure they get some portion of tokens or something like that. Yeah. But again, even more reason to try and be the best little thing you can have in your pocket to do AI. You're really not in the model race at all right now.
And this is why I said this is a different topic. Where they're positioning themselves differently, and I don't want to go too deep into that, because that is a different topic. Really, what I was homing in on was the first part of what you said about the hardware efficiency, and being able to just kind of carry the thing. Like, iPhones are super efficient, just like Android phones are. There just aren't a whole lot of tensor core units that are out there that are being used for laptops and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, can you imagine we get back to a point where like a phone lasts 2 days plus?
Yeah.
You know, or like some little thing you're going to carry with you, it's going to last multiple days. That's huge.
If I use my iPhone regularly, I can get it. It only goes to about 50% every day. And I use an iPhone. I have both. I have an Android phone and an iPhone, but the one that I use regularly for like my daily driver right now is an iPhone. My iPhone, I could make it last for 2 days. Yeah. I generally will charge it like just to keep it like around that like 60% mark, but you know, it's very efficient. While Android phones are efficient, the Galaxy line and the Google Tensors and things like that, or the Google, phones, they're not as, I don't want to say they're not as efficient. It depends on how you use them, but they tend to like have lower battery life, it seems. Yeah. That's from experience. The stats don't say that, you know. Anyways, John Ternus could be a great CEO for Apple. That it might end up being great. He might be another legendary CEO. Hopefully, he will be.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is the end of season 9, episode 4, the Beer and Broadband podcast. Oh, wait a second. We need to talk about the beer as a warmer beer. I drank mine already, but I do remember what it tasted like.
I kind of like it more as a warmer beer. It brings the hoppiness a little bit out of it. It's like a little bit more actually tastes like beer. And so, you know, I wouldn't say it's a massive difference, but in the context of I'm just sitting here and the only thing I can do is sip on it and I don't have any food to pair it with, it's a better sipping beer, a little bit warmer.
I agree that it's probably a little bit better sipping beer. I don't like it as much because it strips away some of the sharp
Yeah,
punch.
it's not as limey, it's not as citrusy,
Yeah,
but it's still there. I mean, that's still the predominant flavor.
yeah, but it's more like a lemonade kind of lime. Or lemon citrusy kind of flavor. Like it's not as
Yeah. I get what
punchy.
you're getting at. It's the total flavor level is closer to something where lime is what you're mixing into it, like a lime or a lemonade, as
yeah.
opposed to the juice itself.
Yeah, like if I just took it off the
Mm-hmm.
fruit and just like
Mm-hmm.
squeezed it into my mouth. So like it's good warmer, but not like depending on what you want, might not meet your criteria.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to what I was saying. This has been season 9, episode 4, the Beer and Broadband podcast, slated to come out on May 11th, 2026. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.